Good day everyone, I am Eula Nathanielle Cuid, and today I am going to talk about some factors of climate change that affects our community and how we can help even in simple ways in order for our community to be more environmentally friendly. The factors of climate change that I am going to tackle are trash, deforestation, water waste, and flood. Before we jump into the factors, let us know what is climate change. Climate change is the long-term alteration of temperature and typical weather patterns in a place. Climate change could refer to a particular location or the planet as a whole. Now let's start from trash. Trash or waste are unwanted or unusable materials. Waste is any substance which is discarded after primary use or is worthless, defective, and of no use. It is one of the factors of climate change because it releases methane gas, a greenhouse gas that contributes to climate change. One of the things that we can find in trash is plastic. So if plastic production stays on its current trajectory, by 2030, greenhouse gas emissions from plastic could reach 1.34 billion tons per year. Therefore, more plastic production, more greenhouse gas emission. In order for us to lessen the effects of trash in climate change, let us start from making changes even by taking smaller steps toward change. But since trash or waste is inevitable byproduct of humans, let's start with avoiding single-use items and choosing durable materials that can be used numerous times. Practice 3 R's, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle, and stop throwing trash everywhere. Through this, we could lessen its effect on climate change. Now let's move on to deforestation. Deforestation refers to the decrease in forest areas across the world that are lost for other uses such as agricultural, croplands, urbanization, or mining activities. It has been negatively affecting natural ecosystems, biodiversity, and the climate. The loss of trees and other vegetation can cause climate change. Desertification, soil erosion, fewer crops, flooding, increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and a host of problems for indigenous people. So how can we stop deforestation? The most straightforward personal strategy to fight against deforestation is to plant a tree. By planting trees, you are helping to combat global warming because trees absorb carbon dioxide. You are also helping to reduce runoff water from the hills. Keeping forests intact also helps prevent floods and drought by regulating regional rainfall. And because many indigenous and forest peoples rely on typical forests for their livelihoods, investments in reducing deforestation provide them with the resources they need for sustainable development without deforestation. Now let's move on to water. Water is essence. Water is beneficial and water is medicinal. It is the elixir of life and bounds in earth according to Bsed. A lot of countries don't really have water resources in their place, and yet in our place we tend to spill and misuse water without even thinking twice. And truth be told, humans can stand a day without a water. Our modern lifestyle provides us the luxury of using various products to make our lives more comfortable and easier, but it comes at a price. A common byproduct of our current lifestyle includes wastewater, which can either be in the form of water running down the shower or runoff from wet roads. This wastewater is unfit for human consumption or use. Now let us define wastewater. Wastewater is used water. It includes substances such as human waste, food scraps, oil, soaps, and chemicals. In homes, this includes water from sinks, showers, bathtubs, toilets, washing machines, and dishwashers. Businesses and industries also contribute their share of used water that must be cleaned. Wastewater effect on water bodies. Toxic compounds in the effluent disrupt aquatic ecosystems. This blocks the light the photosynthetic aquatic plants need. It can also suffocate fish and get caught in birds' feathers. Like heavy metals such as lead and mercury, these are toxic to both humans and animals. Effects on humans. If you come into contact with wastewater or its products, you could end up being exposed to harmful microorganisms that can cause illnesses such as gastroenteritis or diarrhea or vomiting, giardiasis, and cryptosporidiosis or severe stomach cramps, diarrhea, or vomiting. The treatment. You can reuse your water whenever you're doing laundry. Uses the wash basin and the bathroom, aside the flushing water in the toilet bowl. You can save and put the water that you've drained from the washing machine and from the bathroom, and it will flow to the or will be stored in the mixing tank. And it here is the process of alum addition, or alum aluminum sulfate is a non-toxic liquid that is commonly used in water treatment plants to clarify drinking water. Its use in lakes began in early 1970s and is used to reduce the amount of phosphorus in the water, and the water will flow to the filter bed with sand, grit, and gravel inside the filter bed, with a faucet where the filtrate water will flow and will be restored in the treated water storage tank. And from here, you can use the water for gardening and in toilet flush. Always remember that every drip counts. Now let's move on to flooding or flood. Believe it or not, flooding is the deadliest type of severe weather. A flood is an overflow of water that submerges a land that is usually dry. In the sense of flowing water, the word may also be applied to the inflow of the tide. Floods are the area of study of the discipline hydrology and are of significant concern in agriculture, civil engineering, and public health. The causes of floods. Floods are caused by many factors: heavy precipitation, severe winds over water, unusual high tides, tsunamis, or failure of dams, levels, retention ponds, or other structures that contain the water. The effects of flooding. No matter what causes of a flood, it can have devastating effects on your community. There are actually many dangerous flooding effects. Beside physical danger, floods also cause economic and social problems. The gravest effect of flooding is death. In fact, flooding is the number one severe weather killer. Floods have claimed thousands of lives throughout history. Property damage. Since it only takes 2 feet of flood water to wash a car away, flooding can also cause great loss of property. The economic impacts. The economic impact of flooding can be devastating to a community. This comes from damage and disruption to things like communication towers, power plants, roads, and bridges. This brings business activities in an area to stand still. Oftentimes, major flooding results in dislocation and dysfunction of normal life long after floodwaters recede. Flooding hinders economic growth and development because of the high cost of relief and recovery associated with floods. Some methods of flood control have been practiced since ancient times. These methods include planting vegetation to retain extra water, terracing hillsides to slow flow downhill, and construction of floodways or man-made channels to divert floodwater. Methods of flood management. Dams. Many dams and their associated reservoirs are designed completely or partially to aid in flood protection and control. Many large dams have flood control reservations in which the level of a reservoir must be kept below a certain elevation before the onset of the rainy or summer melt season to allow a certain amount of space in which flood waters can fill. Other beneficial uses of dam-created reservoirs include hydroelectric power generation, water conservation, and recreation. Diversion canals. Floods can be controlled by redirecting excess water to purpose-built canals or floodways, which in turn divert the water to temporary holding ponds or other bodies of water where there is a lower risk of impact to flooding. Floodplains and groundwater replenishment. Excess water can be used for groundwater replenishment by diversion onto land that can absorb the water. This technique can reduce the impact of later droughts by using the ground as a natural inventory. Okay, and that's all for my discussion for climate change, and I hope that we can reduce the effects of factors of climate change in order for our community to experience less climate change. Thank you so much for listening and have a good day.